forget to like and subscribe.
And hit the notification bell
so we can go to college and get more knowledge.
Officially, there's roughly 3 cents in purchasing power left out of the currencies, out of the original dollar's worth of purchasing power. So what happens when you get to zero?
Welcome back in the place to be with the CBDC Assets Group. Thank you for being a part of the group. Okay, we got a lot to go over today. I'm highlighting Lynette Zhang because she said some really interesting things in an interview that I don't think anybody else, frankly, has the stones to say what this woman is saying about the elite and the central bankers and the governments that are working with the central bankers. But real quick, I wanted to go ahead and share this site with everybody because I think this is really neat. For those of you that don't know, this is Fiat Leak. You can watch your favorite cryptocurrency. Currently, I have it on my favorite, XRP. You can watch the volume, how many have been trading in the past minute over here on your screen. And you can see each transaction, where it's at, and also what country it originates from. So go ahead and check them out if you don't know anything about it. I love the information on this site because it really gives you insight on where the coin's going, who's doing what, how much is moving, and what countries are dealing with this coin. And I think that's really important to new investors to see the actual use case and where the use case is taking place. This is ITM Trading, and Lynette Zhang, she's a very smart woman, and she's all about being prepared. This video is a little bit longer than normal, but I really wanted to share this information because I don't think anybody says the things that she says. She talks about the Chinese strategy, Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Turkey wanting to apply for BRICS. She has the courage to ask, what if all the world's central banks know this is the end of the dollar, and they want to transition into the new system while maintaining control? And maybe what seems like a conflict isn't even really a conflict. It could just simply be a passing of the baton from the petrodollar. Really deep video. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'll see you on the next one.
Who knows? Why not come out and say, hey, we own a ton of gold here, much more than we're disclosing, to show. Why? What are they waiting for?
Well, they're waiting for the opportune moment because really the conflict between the U.S. and China has been escalating. And it's escalating right now. So I think the Chinese are extraordinarily strategic. And I don't think they like to show their hand until they are ready to actually take that position. And I don't think we're there yet. We need a huge crisis in order to justify a lot of the shift. But I think it's all strategic, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And where is that gold coming from? I mean, we're seeing massive drawdowns on the COMEX and the LBMA. We've been watching that, so maybe that's where it's coming from.
And I obviously want to get back to China for obvious reasons, but you'll see where I'm going with this. This was like a news item lower on the radar, but these are comments from the president of Belarus, LUKOSHENKO, that I want to share with you, because he said the world will soon see new powerful monetary unions with a new reserve currency. Speaking earlier this week, he said, a new system of mutual settlements is taking shape, including an international trade. In short, time is ripe for changes. I believe that new powerful monetary unions with a new reserve currency will emerge soon. Any thoughts on this, Lynette?
Well, absolutely, because we've been watching the U.S. weaponize SWIFT, but there was a movement to create a new monetary union through the BRICS, even before it was overtly weaponized, meaning the SWIFT system, the global payment system. So, I mean, we saw it with the creation of the Shanghai Gold Exchange. We've seen it with the BRICS nations coming together. So, absolutely. I mean, no currency maintains its status as the world reserve currency forever. And the U.S., has really been abusing that position in a lot of countries' opinions.
What do you think the U.S. is planning to do about it? I mean, they obviously see the rise of the BRICS. Do you think they're just sitting back thinking, impossible, no one can overtake us? Or are they concerned and carefully watching this? What's your take?
I wish I wasn't about to say what I'm about to say,
Yeah,
but
no,
I
do
think
it.
that I think it's a very high level of arrogance because the US dollar is still primarily used in global trade. And so I think they just can't believe that they would be knocked off their seat, or
Yeah.
maybe what seems like a conflict is not really a conflict. It's more a handing off of the baton.
Interesting.
And we aren't going to know that.
Explain. You think they would want to hand off the baton?
Well, there is historic precedence for that. I mean, back in '69, when the SDR was created over at the IMF, the U.S. had gone and said, here, take this back. We don't want this anymore. But then Kissinger created the petrodollar. And we see that petrodollar now falling apart with Saudi Arabia saying, oh, well, we don't have to just take dollars. So, but here's the thing that I've been asking, and nobody's really going to know the answer to this. So this is just a possibility. What if the world, all the leaders, all the central bankers in the world actually know that this is the end of this current experiment and they want to transition us into the new system and retain their power? So part of what always happens during these transitions are wars. But if you look at what's been happening for really quite some time, especially since 2008, don't we seem to lurch from crisis to crisis to crisis, keeping everybody off balance?
It feels like that to me, yeah.
Exactly. So what if it's not really them versus us, but everybody, all the central bankers and the governments working together to create this transition? I know it sounds crazy.
No,
but
nothing sounds crazy anymore, Lynette.
Right.
Okay. Is it to usher in the new era of central bank digital currencies?
Oh, yes. It's the surveillance era, and I just got goosebumps. And who has been leading the way to that but China? And, other countries can look at China and say, oh, well, look at their government versus, they might say we have democracy, but we don't really have democracy here. But China's been showing the world how to control their population, except for just recently when they changed the mandate. And I think that's because of the population was starting to rise up in more different areas. So I was very happy to see that. But China's really been showing us the way to get adoption of the CBDC and how to control a society. So it would make some level of sense for them to be taking over.
I have had experts, as Doug Casey recently on my show, saying 2023 will be the year that we'll see the introduction of central bank digital currencies. Some would say it's still too soon. Any takes here? Could this be the year? Are they still in pilot project phase? Where are we at with it, you think?
Well, I think we're a lot further along with it than they want us to understand. So I would agree with Doug that this is going to be the year that we see the CBDCs introduced in earnest. And I can see it, and I could be dead wrong on this, but I could see it happening the second half of this year sometime.
Wow. And I'm assuming you think it would be China to be the first, or? I mean, Doug had said it would be a country like Sweden he put out there as what he thinks could be the first. But
China's already utilizing it for a lot of their population. And we've seen smaller countries, everybody's experimenting with it. But I think we're going to have a big crisis this year. I don't think there's going to be a soft landing. I don't think that there is disinflation. I think there's going to be a hard landing. I think there's going to be a big crisis because, and I talk about this piece a lot, and I don't really hear anybody else talking about it. And maybe it's going to be a big fat nothing burger. Maybe I'm wrong. But we are in the middle of that transition from LIBOR, that interest rate benchmark. Is this are there going to be unintended consequences for the governments and the central banks, or is this absolutely intentional? And keeping people off balance constantly, it makes them more vulnerable.
It does. And it also coincides, Lynette, with that leaked memo from the general saying, we could be at war with China by 2025. So, yes, this constant pitting against U.S. versus China, is it all just created and for what, to your point?
Well, for what is to justify the hyperinflation, right? Because war always justifies high inflation. I mean, you can look back historically, and since 1989, I did a whole study on that, where the timeline between wars grew smaller and smaller and smaller. And by 1989, we've been in a perpetual state of war, which has really validated the need for the larger military-industrial complex, as we know. So, we're not going to know the answer to that. We're probably never going to know the answer to it. But it looks like a lot of unnecessary provocation to me.
I think that's a perfect, and you just gave me goosebumps with that. I think that's a perfect summation, that it is just, keeping us on our toes. We don't know. And
no, I have not changed my mind on Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. I think that they will continue to be around, although not as many as there are out there. Who will survive? Probably Bitcoin, because Wall Street has so adopted it. But would I hold wealth in there? No, I don't own any. And after I see who actually does survive, maybe I will, maybe I won't. We'll have a conversation then and decide. So I don't know. It's not private. You have to give them your name, your social security number. You have to give them all your information when you buy it. And even if you go on and look, it says it's not private.
First of all, officially, there's roughly 3 cents in purchasing power left out of the currencies, out of the original dollar's worth of purchasing power. So what happens when you get to zero?
And that is that our deposits in the bank are at risk of what you say is a bail-in, which has been sanctioned by the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, which said no more bailouts. 2008, we had governments bailing out the too big to fail banks. Now it's time for the depositors to step in. So break that down for us.
Well, for one thing, people have the assumption that when they make a deposit, that's their money, but it's not. When you make a deposit, legally, you are loaning your money to the bank. And in 1995, they enacted Regulation D, which legalized and enabled the banks to sweep your deposits into sub-accounts that are in the bank's name, and then use that as collateral for loans. And, frankly, most of the revenue that the banks generate right now is trading revenue, according to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. So that just enabled them to reduce their reserves and to use your money to gamble with. But what we're seeing in the banking system is as they raise the interest rates, the system is falling apart, because it's really been based upon a never-ending compounding of debt.
Because if you have over $250,000 in the bank can come and take it, and it's not an abstract concept. We saw that happen in Cyprus in 2013.
Well, what they did in Cyprus too, the first bail-in took everything. They ignored the deposit insurance scheme, which in the US was put in 1933 to get people comfortable with making the deposit in the banks, right? So they actually enacted that. And at the same time, they separated investment risk-taking banks with deposit-taking banks. And then in 1999, they eliminated that separation. So in 1995, they enabled Reg D, which allowed them to sweep those funds underneath. And then just a few years later, they allowed the merger of risk-taking trading banks with deposit-taking banks. And now Wall Street really has full access to your deposits.